Hey everyone, so the Young Turks released a video titled Black Lives Matter versus All Lives Matter Social Experiment Debunked. Now this was an experiment done by Joey Salads, a prankster, where it showed the different connotations of holding a Black Lives Matter sign in a predominantly white neighborhood and an All Lives Matter sign in a predominantly black neighborhood. But the Young Turks, being the journalists they are, they had so much time to debunk this social experiment. It's not as if there's an election coming up. If any social experiment goes against their narrative, okay, they're hashtag triggered and they have to debunk it now. The weird thing about this video was, you would expect that their main crew, that their big guns, their big propagandists would be in here. Like Cenk Uygur, Jimmy Dore, Ben Mankiewicz, and of course, that bitch Anna Experian. But the guy who debunks this experiment sounds a bit like this.
Prankster Joey Salad.
Considering that the hashtag Black Lives Matter movement is one of the key main points that they're trying to focus on, you expect that they would bring one of their big propagandists, like for example Fat Buffalo Cenk Uygur. But for some reason they brought on some Irish, Scottish, dumb idiot whose name I don't even want to be concerned with, and why the fuck is he doing the debunking? But anyways, the arguments are just the same, even if it was, for example, John, I even forgot his last name. It's always the same race baiting, the racist criminal justice system, and the systemic racism. And so, let's go on to the video and see how good of a job they do debunking a fucking social experiment.
Who's known for posting videos of his self-styled shocking social experiments to YouTube, last week released a video aptly titled Black Lives Matter versus All Lives Matter to highlight the difference between how the two messages were received in predominantly black and white communities. Salad takes a Black Lives Matter sign to what he calls a random white neighborhood and is met with mostly confusion or laughter. He later describes the reaction as not racist. Oh, of course he did.
Confusion and laughter is now racism. How does that make sense? Well, actually, everything's racist if you're white, so I guess good job.
Then for the next step in his groundbreaking research, he took an All Lives Matter sign to a predominantly black neighborhood and was met with hostility from those who objected his sign, by which I mean a whopping sample size of 3 people. To Dr. Salad, those 3 people, of course, represent the entire black population of the United States.
We start off with a straw man to begin this video. It's not even been 1 minute. Joey Salads has never claimed that those thugs in that video were representative of all black people in America. It is showing the disproportionate responses to an All Lives Matter sign and a Black Lives Matter sign.
But seeing how this played out, it inspired me to take on a new mission, to continue the important work of Joey Salad and further validate his point. I will seek out breast cancer victims or a family raising awareness for it and bring my All Cancer Victims Matter sign with me and document their response.
Speak of a false analogy. Police brutality and cancer have nothing together. The point about the All Lives Matter movement is that police brutality affects everyone, and it does not affect blacks exclusively, while breast cancer affects exclusively breast cancer patients. Get that through your thick head, you dimwit.
Or maybe I'll dive deeper into the darkness, seek out a grieving family who have lost a child, and present my, hey, all children matter sign, engage their response.
Once again, police brutality doesn't affect black people because they're black, while their children being lost affected them because their children were lost and taken away.
But anyway, if that falls on deaf ears, I will always have stats to back up my research, right, Joey? After all, you just need to state facts and those damn Black Lives Matter supporters will go away. Such as this. According to stats and facts, as a white man, I am more likely to be shot by police. Although we make up more of the population, when you factor in how many white people have altercations with the police, the number is even more shocking in the case against what Black Lives Matter believe. Just stating a fact.
Is that the reaction when someone uses actual facts to debunk your race baiting? Well done.
Who's going to argue with stats and facts?
Oh, just leftists, the Young Turks, SJWs, I could keep naming them.
Isn't that a late night show on Fox News? Except that the only actual statistic or fact contained in that post is that 24,756 numbskulls agreed with them?
Way to go on using an ad hominem. It is very true that whites get shot by the police way more often than blacks, almost twice as much. Debunk that fact, you piece of shit.
So what are the actual facts about race and policing? Let's take a look, shall we? According to the most recent census data, there are nearly 160 million more white people in America than there are black people. White people make up roughly 62% of the population, but only 49% of those who are killed by police officers. African Americans, however, account for 24% of those fatally shot and killed by the police, despite being just 13% of the US population. So as the Washington Post points out, that means black Americans are 2.5 times more likely than white Americans to be shot and killed by police officers.
Just because blacks are more likely to be shot by the police considering their population, that doesn't mean they were unjustly shot. Males constitute 93% of the prison population, while females just constitute 7% of the prison population, even though it's 50-50 considering the population. So would you say the criminal justice is sexist towards men? No, men are more likely to commit more crimes. Well, I guess then blacks are more likely to commit crimes than whites. Now, a logical person would ask, why are blacks more likely to be shot by police officers considering their populations? The logical answer would be they have more altercations with the police, they're more likely to resist arrest, and they're more likely to be in high crime neighborhoods. The Young Turks response would be, oh, it's because of the racist criminal justice system.
Now, I understand that you're terrified of being shot by police just because you're white, Joey, but the reality is that a black person shot and killed by police is more likely to have been unarmed than a white person. About 13% of all black people fatally shot by police since January 2015 were unarmed, compared to 7% of all white people fatally shot by police.
Well, actually, that's not true. Blacks and whites who were killed by the police last year were both unarmed at 3%, and the rest were armed and dangerous. Again, both fucking shit.
And since the release of this study in January 2015, police have shot and killed 175 young black males aged between 18 and 29, including Michael Brown in Ferguson. 24 of those 175 were unarmed. Over that same period, police shot and killed 172 young white men, 18 of whom were unarmed. Once again, while in raw numbers there were similar totals of white and black victims, blacks were killed at higher rates proportionate to their percentage of the US population. Of all the unarmed people shot and killed by police in 2015, 40% of them were black men, even though black men make up just 6% of the nation's population.
The question has to be asked, what does being unarmed change about a police shooting? Michael Brown was unarmed, but he tried to kill a police officer. In that case, shooting him was justified. So I'd like to ask you, why is it that if someone is shot and is unarmed, that makes it automatically an excessive use of force?
But I admit, Joey, that these circumstances are complicated.
Well, actually, they can be very easily explained. If you don't want to get shot by the cop, don't resist arrest, comply with their orders, and don't try to kill them. It's a pretty simple list, and you'll be fine.
So I know you're only interested in citing facts that play into your narrative of deflection.
That's rich coming from a guy who just gave us stats on how blacks are more likely to be shot by police. It plays into his narrative that the criminal justice system is racist, even though it can be simply explained by the fact that black men are more likely to commit crimes than any other group in America.
How many examples can you point out of white citizens shot whilst reaching for an ID during a routine traffic stop? How much did Terence Crutcher's life mean to those officers?
I don't know. I wish I could tell. But the thing is that whenever a white person gets shot by the police, the media never reports it. There are no protests like the ones in Charlotte or Milwaukee.
That's what's not reflected in the stats and facts you purport to care so much about.
Okay, let's move on to concrete stats. Explain to me why 13% of the population commits half the nation's homicides, while 93% of the homicide victims are black. How much do the homicide victims' lives matter to the people committing the homicide? What about their black lives?
This experiment, which for the sake of argument we will assume was not staged, does nothing but validate the naive, closed-minded thinking reflected in the All Lives Matter response. So while I have your attention, Joey, let me explain the blindness of All Lives Matter and why your little experiment is bound to evoke different reactions from different communities.
Go fucking ahead.
Black Lives Matter means Black Lives Matter. Not Black Lives Matter more, not Black Lives Matter over white lives or blue lives or whatever manufactured misleading interpretation All Lives Matter supporters supposedly think it means.
No, Black Lives Matter is just a movement that thinks that people are being targeted by the police because they're black.
It means that because Black Lives Matter, the criminal justice system shouldn't unfairly target African Americans for abuse, mistreatment, harassment, excessive punishment, and even, as we've come to see far too often, excessive force resulting in death.
Obviously, the criminal justice system shouldn't do that. But point me to the specific Black Lives Matter cases in which they protest on where these things happened, and we'll have a conversation on that.
The whole point of All Lives Matter is to diminish the message that Black Lives Matter, or that they should matter more than they do.
Well, no, not at all. The point of All Lives Matter is that all lives do matter. Whether the lives of black people are taken by a white cop or another black man, all those lives matter.
Instead, All Lives Matter merely serves to validate the thinking among those who believe the problem isn't with a racist, violent culture of policing, but is in fact the fault of black people who have brought this treatment upon themselves.
Bang fucking on. You see, leftists sometimes bring out some of the best statements I've ever heard. And this is exactly the case. You are 100% correct. If someone is being shot for trying to kill a police officer, they're rightfully shot and they brought it on themselves, regardless of if they're black or white.
But black people understand the real message of All Lives Matter. All too well, actually. It's one they've been exposed to in this country for generations.
Oh really, do they? The All Lives Matter phrase only came after Black Lives Matter started. It doesn't really go back that far.
It's a message that says, stay in your place, and that your voice will not be heard over others.
Again, no. All Lives Matter simply means that all lives matter.
So yes, when you shove an All Lives Matter sign in front of a black person's face, the chances of that person reacting negatively are greater.
Negatively? That was not just a negative reaction. That was a violent reaction shown from the clip you played in your video. How oblivious can you be to actual violence?
Because it's a reminder of not only the prejudice that they've been facing all their lives, but also that they're not even allowed to raise their voice in objection to prejudice and oppression. But then again, maybe I'm not giving Joey or All Lives Matter activists enough credit.
Yeah, no you aren't.
Perhaps those opposing the Black Lives Matter movement are sincere in wanting to expand on what Black Lives Matter activists believe in, that the criminal justice system is unfairly targeting all races, and that we should band together as one community to stand united and demand reform for everyone, not only in the police department and the judicial system, but also for marginalized and mistreated communities.
Yeah, there are no marginalized and mistreated communities in America. Anyone can succeed and anyone can fail. That's the way a meritocracy works.
So if so, I will look out for the All Lives Matter banner at the Dakota Pipeline protest, at the next rally for immigrants' rights, at the next Fight for 15 march.
What kind of logic is that? I oppose the rhetoric of Black Lives Matter. That doesn't mean I support a higher minimum wage. I can decide on the issues independently.
But until that happens, all you are doing in this video is exactly what All Lives Matter was programmed to do. Carrying water for those who would like to refocus attention away from the prominent and systemic issues of race plaguing the nation by conducting a social experiment.
What are these systemic issues of race plaguing the nation? Because from what I know, it is illegal to discriminate against people based on the color of their skin, whether it's done by public or private individuals.
That has about as much to do with science as shooting a snot rocket into the air and trying to pass it off as a NASA moon launch.
The second brilliant statement in this video. It was a fucking social experiment. And you think you had the necessity to debunk a fucking social experiment. Sometimes listen to yourself when you're just yelling gibberish. You may be right once in a while.
So congrats to you. Your experiment has helped reinforce an already intractable racial divide and further deflect attention from the real issue plaguing our society. And perhaps worse, instead of dispelling hurtful, inaccurate, and dangerous stereotypes, you've given validation to those already blinded by racist thinking, all thanks to an experiment with a sample size of 3 people.
Oh really? So, it's not the people who are assaulting Joey Salads that were perpetuating the hurtful negative stereotypes. It's just because Joey Salads held an All Lives Matter sign, he kind of deserved it, right? For example, in Charlotte, when a white man was being beaten up just for the color of his skin, it's not that the thugs were being violent. It's because why would he walk around in Charlotte? Had he not known he would have been perpetuating these negative, hurtful stereotypes about black people? Such a racist bigot. Just to end off here, it just shows the pathetic natures of the Young Turks. They will go on to defend the Black Lives Matter movement without using any conclusive facts or evidence, signifying how there is systemic racism in America. They'll just use the words systemic racism plaguing the nation, and they'll bring up facts about how blacks are more likely to be shot by the police, and while in the end, they'll just act like jackasses. That's been enough for me. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you want more dispelling of fiction from SJWs. In the meantime, I'll catch you later.